Java because I figured it out that in applications like on our phone, we don't have application that can be used for kuan katong Python. Wala ta ato. So that is why we have to only cater only two languages, which is Java and C++. So right now, I'll be demonstrating to you OOP by creating, ato ang topic raron na to is creating a simple class and object. So napata sa abstraction. Napata sa abstraction. So I'll be discussing to you how to create a simple object, a simple class and object because we cannot create object without a class. So that is my actual code here. So since we did not meet last time, yesterday, we will consume everything here so that na may ma-activity karong wika. Okay, so again, I'm using um, Java language. Okay, so I'll start. Um, I will open an IDE called Eclipse for Java. So you can see that here na there is no there is a small difference in Java and C++. Java came from the idea of C++ or no, the idea of C, sorry, C language. So and C++ is from C language also. So the syntax of this language may not differ kuan kay naragid sila similarity. So murag alat mi murag ko na ako sa Baguio diri sulaw ra pud kayo kung ako ang okay kana na lang siguro. Murag itom na jud itom pa ko dan itom pa jud ko. So while waiting for the eclipse to open. So any questions so far? Clarification, suggestions? Okay, so I'll close everything in here for you to work with. So this is an IDE. The same thing with C++. Naatay IDE through phone, napatay through laptop. So commonly, if you are not having a pandemic right now and we are allowed to teach you and in the laboratory, we are going to hands-on this in this kind of IDE, which is on um, Eclipse. Okay, the Eclipse for Java. So in case na wala mo, so you were going to try another application that you were going to use or download in your phone, and that is the name of this is the name of your application, GB Droid. GB Droid. So you can now go to the Play Store and you find this application, GB Droid. Or you may look at on it, na ako i-install na diri sa akong phone. Okay, na ako diri yung makita niyo kanang murag something like orange na ako ang GB2. It's working properly also. And I will be creating also tutorials for Android development or Java development in Android. So at least na may mga dagang makakatunan for me in this semester. So let's now start with our actual coding and our task here is to create classes and object no a class and objects and we did define how we'll create it. Okay, so I'll close everything and we'll start to the start. Okay, so first is we will going to create a project. So why we create project? It is because right now we are now creating multiple classes. Meaning when we say multiple classes, meaning multiple files. Last time in your programming 1 and programming 2, probably you are making programs in only one file. Right now we are creating more files in one project. That is why we call it project folders. We are now creating folders because inside of that folders are um, files that has classes. So every file has a class. So we can name it whatever we want, but I will name it my first OOP experience CS. So this is my name of the project that I am working on it. So I can create multiple classes inside of this folder. So now we can create finish on that one, and I'll don't create. Okay, so I have here now the SIC folder with the source folder where put our we can put our file. Yeah, your class. So in here we can right click this file or this package. We go to new and create class. So we can create a class on it. So remember, this is the source file where you will save the file. So we'll just leave it default. We will just concentrate with the class name. So there should be a naming convention for the class. So we will make it much more simple. First, a class name should have only one word and there is no spaces. If you are putting two words on your name, make sure that it only one word. You can also put underscore for us to have a space, but logically, we only have one word. Okay, that is the ruling. But you cannot do it because most commonly for classes in English, classes are intended for nouns. Mga nouns na siya. Like human, class, um, places, mga nouns gani. No, nouns na siya. Student, natay teacher, so so mga nouns siya. So it's a noun. So you can put it one word only. So the naming convention is one word only, and you cannot type first let numbers. You should start with letters. Like for example, human. Okay, human. That is the name of the class, human, and make sure that the first letter of the word starts with letter or capital letter. It should be capitalized. So that's it. So remember, human, okay, should start with letter H and capitalize. Okay? Kung space na nimo, there is an error. We don't want allowed to make space. Kung human class, so if don't ganahan mo tangan nimo class, you can have class. You make casing convention, camel case. That means you are putting here a space. A second word that has also kanang first letter niya is capitalized. But sometimes we don't need na inana. So automatically that is human. We can identify that that is a class. Okay, then click finish. So we have now our first class on our Java language. So in here we have now the name. The file name is human, and the file extension is .java. So that is what we know, that is the file extension is .java. And in here, we can also have the name of the class. The name of the class and the file name should have the same. The same na siya. So if that is human, okay, capitalize mo ng human dire. If you don't follow that ruling, you may have an error. Even though they are the same human, but they cannot recognize because they want that this capital letter H, not small letter H. So what is the naming convention for your file name will be the same for your class name. That's it. Only the rule. Whatever is your class name is the same with the file name. So it is very easy in here in using laptop because it's automatically generated. I don't know in the phone if it is automatically generated or you are the one making the file name. So I'll be aware of that it should be the class name should have the same as the file name. Okay, remember. So we will now go into deeper. Now this is now the block syntax block of the code for the class. Okay. So this is now how we create a class. So inside the left brace and the right brace are two parts. The one that we mentioned a while ago, we have characteristics, character, characteristics, or sometimes we call it attributes, huh? Or we we going to name it class global variable in our OOP way. Okay, sometimes we call it variable attributes. And a second part one is the function or the behavior. In OOP, we call it methods. So there are many terminologies, but we're just looking into common thing, function. So there are two parts of a class. We have attributes or characteristics, then function. So inside of this left brace are the two parts. But before that, let me explain to you what is this three line of code, three words here really mean. Okay? The first one is what we call access modifier. This is access modifier. Remember the one that remember the one that I explained to you a while ago about encapsulation, that hiding data. This is the thing. But before we will just discuss it later during the encapsulation. But right now we have access modifier and we can set it first to public. So there are three choices to use for access modifier. We have public, private, and protected. So those are the things really for access modifier. So what are those things? So I'll just give you a small insight. Think of these access modifiers like CR, a comfort room. So a comfort room may have in a public places like on every municipalities have provided CRs, di ba? So anyone of the public CR can use of it. So tanan, kita tanan if we will go to like for example in my place Tayasan there is provided a CR and anyone in Tayasan or dili ka taga Tayasan na naaka maridere if you are uncomfortable you can what you want to pee or you can release your 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 waste you can use that CR because that is public, right? But there is private like the CR from your home. That is private. Only you can freely access those CR but outside of your home, people outside of your home cannot access it unless they can access it if they will ask permission to your family to use your CR. That is the time they can grant, they can access your CR. But private siya, para na yun, private for your family. And we have protected CR, probably those only have keys can only access those CR because that is protected only. If you don't have keys, you don't access that CR. So the same thing in access modifier. It's the same thing in here. So probably you can uh, learn from it later for our topic for encapsulation. So right now, public is what we call access modifier, and since now then I will just setting it for public for because it's only for learning basic in OOP. So now next is class. Class is a keyword that tells the compiler that you are creating a class. So if you're in class, meaning you're creating a class. After that is the name of the class. That is the okay. So public class human. So anyone makadungog ra nako og klaro or there are some na wala di sila kadungog due
Oh,
to their
sir.
connect.
Bukas sir, kay nag-evolution sir.
Sige sige. Um I know I probably I will just record nag-record naman pud noon ko dire. So you can just watch it later. So right now, we know that this is now the class. Okay? So first thing that we are going to do is our variable in here. So our variable is a set of characteristics or attributes that really um, define what is human. Okay, what is human? So human was by mentioned a while ago. Human can have a name. Human can have a gender. Human can have what's a man?
An address,
Yes, human can have an address. Human can have
age, sir.
okay age, correct. Uh, human can have a date of birth. Human can have a height, and human can have a weight. Those are sa simple attributes or characteristic that you can describe a human, di ba? Katubang tao human na ngalan niya, katubang tao gabahay ganiya, di ba? How you describe a human. Katubang taga-kuan ba, di ba? Katuyang edad kuan. Katuyang birthday January 4. Katong taason ba? Katubang tambukon, di ba? So how that is why you describe your human. Okay? So these are the things that you describe as a human. Remember that characteristics is what we call our global variable. So meaning it is a form of variable. Once it is a variable, that means that is a storage, and that is we call it data, and we need a data type here. So now you can define what are the data types really needed for this kind of variable. So right now in name, what are the data types in name? So probably this is a string, right? Gender, it is a male and female. Probably this is also a string. Address, this is also a string because it consists of numbers and letters. Age, this is in, right? Date of birth consists of what? Because there is a separator. It depends of how we separate. It will start, diba? Depende man mo start kag date, month, or year, but there is a separator for that. Even though huwag mo siyang i-word for word. A month has a letter also. So this should be a string for the date of birth. Height, it depends on us. It can be kilo, we have centimeter or meter. Can we have meter in format, but meter can have also decimal numbers, points like 3.58, 3.67. So there is a point value. So we can choose it double. Weight also can, there's all choices. It's either kilogram or pounds. Can we see have kg? So also this is double since we can have weight 82.5, 87.5. So have a double floating point numbers. So we have here a double. So basically that is what we call attributes or characteristics of your class human. Okay, every programming languages, don't forget that there is a terminator to end the line, or you say the semicolon. So don't forget to use that one. Semicolon, semicolon, semicolon to have a error-free program. So that's it. So basically, first we describe all the things that really needed describing the human class, then define what are the data types intended for those um, characters, characteristics or attributes, and that's it. And now this is what we call the characteristic of the human class. You can now have a name, gender, address, age, date of birth, height, and weight. So any questions so far about characteristics or attributes in a class?
None so far.
Okay, none so far daw. So how about sa uban? Kung wala na, we will proceed to the function or the behavior. Okay, functions. Basically functions here in our, since we are just on basic, we don't on the higher computer science where we are building robotics, we are building artificial intelligence, that we are creating katudjong mo actual jud walk si human, mo talk, mo sleep, and everything. It is only simple function that we will process on it. So later on, we will not make it much more advanced. Dili ni siya parehas ato sa game development where when we strike For example, we have function that's skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, and it will function everything what is on the skill 1, and that is also done with programming, but it is helped with the graphic motion animation. You combine ang graphics and programming that makes it a game development. So much more complex na siya. But first thing is you cannot build a game development without prior basic knowledge about basic programming. So karon sa basic lang ta, kanato ang human diri mo print lang mo greet lang hello I am. It's only basic thing. So later on kamo na mo paghimok anak po if you are enjoy with the creating a game development. So I am hoping that someone else here can develop that one. It's just very nice to have those technologies or skill set. So panikamot lang mo. So now we will now go to the function. Like we will let the user when the human if it is asked to greet it will greet na hi I am the name of that human. Okay, so first we have to create a function. But we created a function in our C++ tutorial. So kaniya to mama ora pwede yapon dire. So first is the same thing in our declaring a class. First thing that we have is this. Um, we have to declare the access modifier. So always use public. Okay, we always use public for our access modifier first right now. Then next is we select data type. Right now we all use void parang dili ta malisod because there are some of you are confused about the return types. So right now we don't need to return any value. We just want to print a print or information to output in our function or our method. So function or method are the same. It's really talking about function. So it's a terminology that we use often. So sometimes we use function, I call it function, sometimes I call it method. So ayaw lang magkalibog. So public or void, public void and the name of that function. Like for example, greeting. So that is the name of the function. And do not forget to put open close parentheses for us to tell that this is a function. And always left and right brace. So this is what we see for what we really see on kuan kaning sa function. So first is the access modifier, then next is the data type, then the name of the function. So here inside of here is the function definition or the classification what the function will work or will execute if this function is called. Kung tawagon ng function inside of this human class, unsa yang buhaton. So all we need to do is to output. Okay, so output lang to hello, I am, and the name of the object. So in C++, as you can see, this is common. Everything here is most likely in C++. Makita gyud nimo, it's still the same. But here right now, and the outputting of data or the syntax for outputting data is not the same anymore. In C++, we are using C out for outputting data. Right here, this is how we output data from Java. We have system out that print line. So here, this is inside of this method. Basically, I will be explaining to you also on later on why we have this kind of syntax. But right now, don't confuse yourself. This line of code here is to output any information from the program. So any information inside of this open close parenthesis will be outputted. So right now we will make it we will output hello I am. So hello I am, and we will add two strings or combining two strings and the name. Now this is the name and we don't know even what is the name value of the name since we don't yet created an object of this class. So whatever the name of that object that is being created, it will be now populated here. So whatever we have here whatever our name of the function, and we have here what is we output the only this hello I am. This is a string, and also this is a string. So we combine it. So this is the process, we call it is concatenation. We concatenate we concatenate two strings. Also, this is the first string, hello, I am. And the second string, you all know that name is a string. So combining two strings, we call it concatenation. So we are now combining the strings in one, to form it one. So basically, when we call the greeting, it's automatically uh, output only this value, hello, I am. So right now, since we don't have any time, I will just using only one value, which is the name. So that's it. We have now attributes or characteristics in here, and we have here functions. So that makes it a class. So once we have now the class, we have now the template. We can now make an object out of the class. Okay, so we can now make an object out of the class. So any questions regarding with this one? Let me save first. We can say it that it is not saved because of there is a asterisk in besides of the file name. Always save it time to time so you can no longer having a problem deleting or mawala in yung mga gipang encode. So any question about creating a class? It is only a short and brief explanation. I'll be just discussing it more on detail next meeting. So any question here or about your class?
Wala ra.
Wala
Uh,
na, sir.
okay, so if you have
Okay ra
now,
sir, nasabi ko na sir.
okay, so if we're done with the class, we will now create another class, and that is to create our main function. Basically, what we are doing here is no output in our program. When we output our program here, right click. This is the project that I have to output, and I will run as Java application. You have an error here. Thus, tell us selection does not contain a main function. So a selection does not contain a main function. So meaning what we don't have a main function since here is only this is only a template for a human class, and there is no a main function that execute our project. Remember that every program in Java or any program in C++ has its own main function. That is why we have a main function. When we write our codes, there is a main function. Right now, we don't have a main function here. So what we need to do is to create another file that has a main function. So we will now having two files in our project. So the other file is the one, actually the human class, and the other file has a main function that really will access the human class. And that will be, and that inside of that main class, we will create objects of it, of from the human class. So right now, go back to the default package, and then create another class. Okay, and we can name it here for our class main. Or always remember, it starts with letter, capitalize the first letter of the name of your class. Click finish. As you can see here, we have now two class or file name. We have class human, a file name human.java, and then we have here main.java. So we have now main.java here. So we have now a class here in uh, another class named main. Remember, okay, that is the reason why also Java language is not taught in programming 1 and programming 2. Basically, because this is a purely object-oriented language. Java is a purely OOP, not di pares sa C++ and C that they have a choice if they use OOP or procedural. So here is basically when you create program here, it's automatically you have a class directly. Okay? So all we need to do here is to create a main function. So the same thing in our katong sa tuang main function sa C++. This is how we write main function in Java. Okay, public, remember all this is public, static, void main, string, argument. So those are how we can create, this is the method how we create the main function of the C++, oh no, Java language. So that is now we can write here our object by using the human class here. We can now create one or two objects if since we have a few nanatay time, nilapas na 17 minutes. Hopefully we can end it with on 5:20 something. So right now I'll be creating now object from our class human. Always remember that this is human and class are on only in one package, in one folder. So it's no difficult for calling this function. Oh no difficult in calling this class since there are close to each other. Like if you are calling to your friend, if you're calling to your friend next to you, you don't need to shout. You don't need to shout, but only call it in a nice way since you are only beside to each other. The same thing here. So the program will automatically identify that the main and a human are only on one folder. So you don't need another file path to access this file. It's automatically it can recognize. Just type here the name of the class human. That's it. And you are telling that this is the human class that you are going to access. Next is you are going to create the name of the object. So for example, you can name it my object one. Oh, so my obj1, that is the name of the object. So here we created an access of the human class and we name it to the name object, my object. So this here, I'll comment it. This is what we call declaration of object. So you declare the object. You declare pa nimo, but there is no instance of it. Wala pa ka ni copy. Because basically a class, an object is only a copy of a class. Remember that is a template of a class. Then if you're going to create an object of it, you copy the template and fill out the information. Para kang ni copy ra kang template. So right now we're just declaring an object here. So declaration of object here on this line of codes. In order to create a copy of the human class, we have to use the keyword new. So use the name of the object my obj1 is equal to new, that is mean the new instance of a class, making a new copy of the human class, and you type there the name of the class human. Okay, so right now I cannot discuss to you this one since of a short period of time, but later on I'll be discussing why there is an open close parenthesis there, because we don't have an open close parenthesis in our human class. Wala man tayo open parenthesis na human. So wala man na siya. So it's still I'll be discussing to you why there is open close parenthesis. Right now, just stick on it. This is how you are going to create a new copy of that class, and this is what we call initialization of object. Initialization of object. So now we are now creating a new object from the class human. Okay. So that means when we create this object, when I type my obj1 and you use the dot operator, you can see all the datas that are accessed that has in the human class. So remember this one address? This is the one that we use that we created a while ago. Age, date of birth, gender, height, name, weight. All of those things are uh, accessed here. Have an access on this uh, characteristics inside the human class. The same thing, we have also created the greeting, okay, greeting function that is on the human class also, that can be accessed also. So right now, we can access those attributes and behavior on inside the human class. So we can now assign value to it. Like for example, I'll be assigning a value for the name, and I will say since the name is a string, I will put open close parentheses, and then I'll be providing a value like Juan Are Kasing Kasing. So we have now a value a name from the from the object one. So nanatay access sa value sa name. So remember that we have a greeting behavior that really access when you use the greeting, it outputs hello, I am, then whatever the name. So right now we can use that one by accessing also the object name my obj1 dot greet. Okay. So right now we access the greet, and when the greet will is called, it automatically execute what is inside the greet. Okay, sa greet thing na method. So when we run, this is now the output on this program. The output is, hello, I am Juan Are Kasing Kasing. By just assigning the value of the name in here, because in our template we don't know what is the name of the value for this object if you are going to create, but we create an output that saying that if they will use the behavior, it will output hello I am and whatever the name on value of that name. That is why in here we created an object, we initialize it, then now we assign access the value of the name, we access the name and assign the value of one array kasing kasing. Now we now try to out use the greeting function, then it's automatically executed. So that is the output. Hello, I am Juan Are Kasing Kasing. So question?